Hello and welcome, or welcome back. I'm Nicole, a cottage witch, and this is my week and a half, because I'm a bit late, but it's Christmas, so it's busy, in books, art, and I do have tarot this week that I've used. So I'll start with that. Will I start with that? No, I'll start with the books first, because they're taking up the most space on my desk. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm on my late lunch break from work, and work is all the tech things that could go wrong today went wrong today. Well, probably not all the things that could go wrong, but like a series of cascading events. And so there are crises aplenty, and I'm waiting on things to sync and messages back from people before I can do things. So I'm taking a late lunch break, finally, to talk about some books. One of the books I've been reading is Jane Eyre, but in French. The exciting thing that I've found about reading this in French as opposed to English is if I was reading it in English, I would have been done it by now. I would have been done it last week. I'm so much slower in French, which is usually frustrating. But in this case, actually kind of enjoyable because I have to slow down a little bit because I can't speed up the audiobook. And if I was reading the physical book, I couldn't read it at the same speed I could in English either. And a good couple of hours of the audiobook I actually had to go back and re-listen to because I realized I'd missed some parts that I knew were there and must have happened already, but I missed them somehow. I got distracted, I guess. So this is quite fun. Yeah, loving that. Tangentially related, may watch Frankenstein over the holidays. We'll see. I got this children's book called Annie and Bert, A Weaving Story. It's so cute. So the story is adorable. The writing is okay. It's not terrible, but it didn't wow me, and some of the dialogue felt a bit awkward sometimes. But the illustrations by Victoria Semikina, that's her name there, are so cute. Like, look at her tangled loom with the bird, Bert, in it. It's so, I love her illustrations. I think I heard of this book via Orla Stevens, who's also on YouTube, but she's got a Patreon for artsy things, and like, this is just so, it's so cute. So I enjoyed that. Whoops, I think that can go on the floor at the moment. And then I got a book from the library, which is another one of these art books that weighs a ton. It's about Basquiat. Whoops. That apparently had a place. The library puts these bookmarks in. This is not from this book though, because this has nothing to do with place. This is, somebody stuck that in there. Anyway, he was an American painter who died quite young, like 27 or 28 or something like that. I think his parents were Haitian. His name sounds Haitian, but he was American. And he did this sort of, I don't know what you call it style, if it's like neo-expressionist with graffiti influences. I mean, I know he was influenced by graffiti art, and I know nothing about graffiti art, the traditions or history or anything like that, so like I can't speak to that in the slightest. I was just looking up people in the neo-expressionist movement in the 80s and 90s, and he was painting in the 80s, and just was so interesting. He's one of these people who, here's a picture of him beside his art. You can sort of see why the hair is going all over the place in all of his paintings. I think he dropped out of high school and then said something along the lines later of that art was the thing he fell into because it was the only thing he felt he could do. And he was an unusual case of an artist, a contemporary artist, particularly a Black contemporary artist, selling paintings for millions of dollars in his own lifetime. That like almost never happens. So it was a bit of a journey, his life, although it was very, very short. And sometimes some of the stuff feels a bit like hieroglyphs. This, where's the crown? There's a crown in there somewhere up here that features in a lot of things. Which reminds me, I was watching one of these response videos of a a YouTuber who was talking about celebrity artists, and Adrian Brody and James Franco blatantly rip off Basquiat in their art. Like, they're not even trying to hide it. It's just so Basquiat coded. Except he was the first one to do it quite this way. Also, the look on Adrian Brody's face when he poses next to his art is hilarious. It's a bit like, who's in here? Andy Warhol is in here in some of these photos because he knew Basquiat. And here's some paintings on wood paneling, which is kind of cool. And he looks like Warhol looks in his photos, which is just like smug. Like, look at that. Okay, look at this. This is these. I don't know who this is. Who is that? Oh, that worked brilliantly. Francesco Clemente. I don't know who that is, but that's Warhol and that's Basquiat. And Warhol always, he looks exactly like that in every single photograph of him ever taken. It's hilarious. He took himself way too seriously. And Brody does the same. It's so funny. I don't think they mean it to be funny, but it's so funny. Anyway, this one I quite like. So that was my entertainment and books for the week. Yeah, it was fun. Basquiat, I think, is not like my favorite painter ever or anything, but I find his work interesting. Sometimes it is like hieroglyphs where you have to try and decipher what he was trying to communicate with it. And some of it, I think I would be able to follow some kind of through line a little bit more if I knew more about graffiti art and its history, but I just don't, so oh well. But that was fun to look into. And the tarot I used this week is an oil painted deck, actually, by Camille. Les Jardins de Clos, I think is her Etsy shop name. But it's Le Tarot des Paysages Intérieurs, the tarot of interior landscapes. And it is, I think it's gorgeous. I can see why it's not for everybody, because oh, the sun is coming in at a weird angle through my window now. That's excellent. Usually I film without sun at all, because by the time I get to this, the sun has already set, because it's the middle of winter. But today I have sun. Oh, there's that little crown on this one too. Huh, that's funny. But I really like these. They're little oil paintings, and actually I have no idea how big they are in real life. But they're so evocative to me of the prairie landscape in the winter in Saskatchewan that they just feel like home. So I've been using these this week, and that's been delightful, because we did get snowed in, 2 snowstorms back to back, with a brief reprieve of a couple of days in between them. So that's been fun. Stay off the roads, they're treacherous. It's a bit nuts out there. But anyway, this is just so, this is the Knight of Cups. That's very Saskatchewan in the winter, and I love it so much. I love the subtle changes in color and texture in both the sky and the landscape, and the little marks, the funny other little marks that she makes all over the place. I love it so much. And I used that as well in relation to some of the artsy things I was working on this week, which I will show you next. Okay, so mostly I've been puttering in my sketchbooks this week because I've been on an experimenting spree, which has involved, let's see, what did I show last week? I can't remember. I made a gouache palette out of, I think I talked a week or 2 ago about some gouache paints that I got on sale. Daniel Smith, very luxurious. So I did just an experiment of putting lines of different colors next to each other with that palette, and then did some backgrounds and drew on top of them. And so the backgrounds were just plain with some leftover gouache. These are some of the doodles I made. Oops, with the lights being funny. Again, it comes through the slats and the blinds in a weird way, bouncing around. And just did some playing with layering, pencil crayons and pastels and ink tints and whatnot on top of the gouache. This was getting more along the lines of what I was looking for, and this one was my favorite thing I think I made all week. I love it so much. it was so very taking out my frustrations on the pencil crayons. Like, sometimes I feel like stress or the anxiety that I've felt my whole life ends up in my bones, like it just gets stored there somehow. And this felt like pushing it out of my bones via the pencil crayon onto the paper. Pencil, the scribbling. Oh, there's the funny light again. So it's vaguely therapeutic. I also got acrylic ink, which is the fault of the Lazy Redhead. I'll link her channel down below. It's delightful. She's so much fun and a little chaotic, but you know, it's like that sometimes. So I got this is just a background for something else I'll doodle on top of this, but I did a couple of these, and I really like some of the scratchy marks with the droppers and some of the color blending and things. It was super fun. So that was that sketchbook. I had gotten previously a good quality acrylic ink in just a really, really dark brown color. In fact, this color. And I love it. But I didn't know if I wanted to get all the colors I wanted in the good inks, because I didn't know if I'd like using them enough to warrant that kind of expense, because they're like, I don't know, $13 or $14 a bottle. So that adds up pretty quickly if you get a bunch of colors. So anyway, the Lazy Redhead has a couple of videos. One's called Acrylic Ink is the Shizzle. And the other one, the follow-up to that, was Cheap Ink is the Shizzle. And so I watched that and I got one of the cheap inks. It's like $25 for a set of 8 or 10 colors. Some of the colors I don't like, but it's cheap. So like, whatever, I can try it and play with it and see if I like it or don't like it. These are some of the colors I did playing with that. Ooh, these are ink tints. That was fun. Why? That little light is just, driving me a bit nuts. Anyway, it was good fun. What else did I have? Anything else in this one? I don't think I'm going to show anybody. I don't think. But yeah, that was fun. So these are my 2 watercolor sketchbooks that I will use over the holidays, I think. This is my non-watercolor sketchbook that occasionally I use water in anyway. This I pulled out one of the pages. I ripped out a couple of pages because I didn't like them. And then I just did this over top and kept layering things until it couldn't accept anything else. And I like the scribbles. And then I did, what else did I do? There's some gouache in here too that I put. So you're not supposed to, it's not meant for watercolor, but I put down some gouache and then I put down some Inktense pencils on top of it, and that was quite fun. And I used some colors that I love, that I might not use a lot of in landscapes ordinarily, but it's winter. Everything's covered in snow. I can do what I want. So yeah, I just did some, so it looks a bit funny and the paper's all wobbly. And the water spread in really weird ways because it's not really built for that, this paper, but it was fun to experiment with. And then I'm still working on the figure drawing and portrait tracks from Art Prof. So I did a couple. That's from a picture of Winnie Mandela, and then some feet that almost look like feet, vaguely identifiable as feet, which, you know, progress. Also vaguely identifiable as feet with slightly elongated toes, but you know, whatever. Then I did some like scribbly portraits that are just all scribbly lines, because that's my favorite thing to do. Oh yeah, I did another portrait in here too that was not scribbly lines. I think I'd shown one of these I'd shown last week, and then I did this other one. There's something funny about her mouth that I haven't figured out yet. I did something weird there. I think on the right side of her mouth. It's just a bit odd looking. It's bugging me. But I quite like this water soluble pencil. It's good fun. So I'm gonna probably go in with another layer on her and see if I can figure that out. I also didn't go, I think the shadows could be darker. I was a bit too cautious and didn't push it. And then I went out to the park. There's a park near me that has like 15 different types of trees in it. So I went and took a picture of all the different types of trees. Not quite all, most of the ones that I have some sort of connection to in the winter, so I could see sort of the shape of the tree and their branches without the leaves on. And then I did some doodles of that. So that's an oak and that's an elm. So elms grow more sort of curving up, whereas oaks go out everywhere. It's just an explosion of leaves in every direction. And rowan, despite being covered in leaves in the summer, have hardly any branches on them. It's impressive how few branches they have. I didn't realize that. So that's what I was working on mostly. Oh yeah, and then I did I did these 3 little white background paintings just with acrylic paint, and I painted, I don't know how many layers are on here now, like 30 odd. Because I was playing with, I've got zinc white now and titanium white, and zinc white is more transparent than opaque, and titanium white is more opaque than transparent. So I was trying to learn more about how those two behaved. And so I put down a few colors and then kept layering and layering and tried to see the different textures I could get and the different, what you could see through it and everything. And then I doodled a little oak tree on it. And then I did the same thing on this, but the shadow's a different color. Whoops. Sorry about the weird flashing light thing. And then the third one, I didn't feel like doing a tree. I just did an abstract little doodle and added some oil pastels and just played a little bit to see what I could do. And then, oh, these are the inks. I swatched. This is my idea of a swatch. Okay, I don't do the, I know some people are really good at swatching things in their sketchbooks in a way that's like really orderly and neat, and everything's, you know, just tidy little squares all the way across. No, this is never gonna happen for me. This is how I roll here, this right here. That's how it works. I did do some of the acrylic ink on, what is this? This is acrylic paper. And I put so many layers that it's now just like plasticky. This is just a background. I'm gonna do something on top of this at some point. Sorry about that silly light. Anyway, but I quite like how it works. The brown is a bit, if you go in thin enough layers, the brown and the yellow ochre are a bit transparent. And in fact, so are these, although you can't tell from how many layers I put on top. And then it got to the point that it wasn't like the paper was saturated, so nothing else was gonna absorb. It was just gonna sit on the top. So that was a good learning experiment. And then along the same lines, this is on watercolor paper. I put fewer layers on and then tried to put ink tints on top to see how that would work. And I think I like how it feels better. It hasn't gotten quite to the, oh, this silly light, quite to the plasticky. Sorry about that silly light. Nearly done here. Quite to the plasticky layer yet. And then I got a couple things that I forgot about until just now, because they were at the bottom of my pile. One is, so Zuzu's House of Cats on YouTube. She's got a YouTube channel. She's working on a collection of paintings called, it's so funny. It's Things Men Have Said to Me Instead of Hello. So use your imagination. You won't have to work hard. She's phenomenal. I'll link her YouTube channel down below as well, because she's fantastic. She's queer, she's ADHD, and she's an artist. She lives in, I want to say like Denmark or somewhere around northwestern Europe. Had to map out my directions there. And but she's English, I think, but she lives there now with her husband, and is just so much fun. Also there, I think I'd probably show these on YouTube without getting issues, because they're so, I'm sorry, this one's one of my favorite, this like vaguely tie-dye looking one. And then there's always a cat in her work somehow. Always a cat. So there's a cat, because, you know, she is called Zuzu's House of Cats. And her YouTube channel is excellent. And then I got a brochure that I thought was a book. It is not. It's a skinny little brochure, but it's apparently an original from, which is why it cost the amount of a book. But it's an Elaine de Kooning exhibit at the Klein Fine Art Gallery. And it's a book about her, or the brochure from her show there. And so it does have some of the photos in it. It's got the business card on the back too. And then, so I will read I haven't read it yet, but I will. Like, this is her drawing of, trying to get that light to go away, her husband Bill. That's a painting of, and so yeah, I love her work. There's a book of portraits that somebody's collected of her work, and I want to get that too, but I have to find a secondhand one that's not $300 because I'm not, nope, absolutely not. Anyway, I think that's my week for the week. I've kept busy. I probably won't do anything else until after Christmas because it's bananas. Well, it's gonna be bananas. It's already bananas, and it's gonna get more bananas. Bananas for everybody. Anyway, okay, I'm tired and clearly should stop talking now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.